The Chinese Vision in 15 Years. I often hear about China having a secret strategy or agenda, but the thing is, unlike our Western governments, China actually does have a long-term strategy. If our rulers are obsessed with the short term, such as the election, this is not the case for Chinese leadership. So, today I propose to dive into the Chinese vision of the 2030s, based on the articles of real specialists on Asia, namely the people from Gavekal Research and Gavekal Dragonomics. Together, we'll examine the construction of a world superpower. Let's check it out. First of all, let's take on a misconception that is still very much in circulation. China needs to achieve 6 to 7% growth per year to ensure that the standard of living is sufficient enough to make people accept the nature of the communist regime. This entrenched idea comes from none other than Xi Jinping himself. He brought it up often in 2015. So what some still consider as the discovery of the Chinese secret agenda is just public information dating back to 2002. But today, the situation is different because the migration of people from the countryside to the cities is over, which had been colossal until now. Just imagine that each year about 20 million people left the countrysides to settle in the cities. Over 20 years, China had displaced 500 million people, and that's almost twice the population of the United States. It is this internal mass migration that required a GDP growth of 6.5% per year in order to meet the needs of this incredible number of people. When you have 20 million more workers every year, production tends to increase when the infrastructure is present. That was the challenge for China for the last 20 years. To keep up the investment in the country's infrastructure to accommodate this rural exodus. Now that the movement of the population between the countryside and the city is essentially over, it is logical that growth should take a lower cruising speed. It is in this context that we arrive in 2020. The long-term objective is profoundly different. Now that a lot of infrastructure is in place and the plants are set up, we need to bring Chinese production up to the next level. For the past 30 years, China has been seen as an economic power for emerging technologies of the past, and basically, as China was manufacturing all the new Western tech of the time, it was copying it. It was this decades-long deal that led to the deindustrialization of the West in favor of Asia, and in return, a spendthrift life for Westerners. I talked about it in this video. The following long-term goal becomes clear: become an innovative power. And now, it's a whole new ballgame. This is also the moment when the US says stop. We have seen it in the area of semiconductors, which is at the focal point of the US trade restrictions toward China. The US no longer wants to honor its Faustian pact with China, knowing that the devil is coming down to Washington looking for souls to steal. So the trade war is raging, and it will continue regardless of which administration is in power. Democrat or Republican, it doesn't matter. It is only a matter of survival for the US empire. And yet, history is following its course as China intended. Today, China produces more smartphones than any other country. And Taiwan, with the company TSMC, is becoming a leader in the manufacturing of very high-quality semiconductors, leaving the Western giant Intel on the sidelines. Obviously, finding Taiwan at the heart of a key high-tech sector will not ease diplomatic and military tensions between the US and China. Now you should understand much better why Trump has focused the trade war on the high-tech sector by entering into a very tough conflict over semiconductors and banning Google's Android system for Huawei smartphones. That's just the crux of the war. Moreover, the impact on Huawei is quite real. In response, China continues to rapidly expand its production capacity for semiconductors. The Earth continues to rotate, and the Chinese progress continues to advance. So far, nothing secret either, since the Chinese ambition for tech goes back to Deng Xiaoping in the 1980s. According to the Chinese agenda, the plan called China 2025 aims to bring Chinese industry up to date with the technologies of the future compared to the West. Then the Chinese Communist Party have another horizon set at 2035, overtaking the West and becoming an innovative power. The goal is to eliminate 40 to 80% of the high-tech imports on which China depends, mainly in the sectors of semiconductors, vehicles of the future, and renewable energies. At this stage, we do not know if China will achieve this, but the stock market seems to believe it. Let's look at the sources of financing for the companies that have to produce these innovations. Market financing weighs about the same in 2020 as investment through debt. The last important element to know, since the COVID crisis, China is targeting what it calls dual circulation. This is a concept that, in practice, aims to minimize its dependence on foreign high-tech, especially the United States. The fall of the Chinese GDP in the spring of 2020 is largely due to this dependence on foreigners. The term dual circulation refers to the consolidation of sufficient domestic demand in all production sectors to satisfy Chinese demand while continuing to trade with the world. China seeks to be strong enough to trade internationally without exposing itself to too much dependence and potentially damaging its economy. Moreover, retaining foreign investment in China allows China to stimulate innovation in its economy. That's how they got the technology for our airliners and high-speed trains. That's what our American and European leaders all promised during COVID, but only China has planned to build its own power over 15 years. The massive purchases of gold by China, the introduction of the yuan quotation of oil, the establishment of the equivalent to an Asian IMF or a gold quotation market in China are predictable and announced steps in China's major plans to establish its long-term strategy. Yes, this means China is probably going to create a competitor to the dollar thanks to a yuan that will be revalued gradually and will benefit from a gold coverage. And yes, China will continue to buy assets abroad in order to consolidate its power. It's not for nothing that they have stakes in all the ports on the route from Shanghai to San Francisco via Europe. Let's always remember that China in world history is about 20% of the GDP, and know that the phase of depression in China that lasted more than a century has ended. Thank you so much for watching. If you like my videos, please subscribe and don't forget to hit the bell if you want to be notified of the next episode. And if you want to invest in the stock market over the long term or diversify your financial portfolio, I'm offering you an analysis of the 8 European star stocks to have. Thanks again for watching and have a great day.